aside to the audience that he is evil and he really wants the crown, so he's going to do everything in his power to pit his two brothers against one another. So he convinces his brother that the other brother, Clarence, is a traitor, and Clarence is sent to the Tower of London to be executed. Meanwhile, Lady Anne Neville, who is at her husband's funeral procession, curses Richard and says he's a villain and all this stuff, but Richard somehow manages to woo her at her husband's funeral procession and convince her to marry him. The Queen Margaret of late Henry VI enters the court and is trying to tell everyone Richard's bad news, don't trust him, but she is, goodness gracious, I just blinked. She's the last Lancaster in the court, and they're all Yorkists, they're all ignoring her. So she leaves and she curses everyone as she walks out. In the meantime, Richard manages to have Clarence executed. Edward starts to fall ill and then dies, apparently from guilt of his brother dying. And Richard and Buckingham plan to eliminate the young princes, the young Prince Edward and the young Duke of York, so that he can take the crown. And Elizabeth wonders what's going to happen to the court if that happens. So she sends her two kinsmen to go pick up the kids. Richard manages to pick them up and have them sent to the Tower of London to be executed as traitors, and says that he's putting the young Prince Edward and the young Duke of York in the Tower of London for protection, all the while telling all the English people that they're illegitimate children and thus have no claim to the throne. So while he's trying to feel out who could be possibly loyal to him and who will only be loyal to the late King Edward, the Duke of Hastings reveals that he is only going to be loyal to Edward and he will never buy Richard being the king, and so Richard gets furious and has him sent to the Tower of London to be executed as well on a very large list of deaths. Now everyone's gone, Richard can be the king, he manages to get himself crowned as king, and he orders Buckingham to go to the tower and kill the two young princes. Buckingham refuses, he says that's unacceptable, and it falls out of Richard's favor. He escapes to Wales and tries to get a little army going together to try and march against him. Meanwhile, all of Richard's nobles have gone to France to join up with Richmond, the Earl of Richmond, who is mounting a huge army to take care of Richard. So Richard then decides, okay, the next plan of attack is to woo Queen Elizabeth's daughter, Elizabeth, to try and cement his place on the throne, and so he goes. Queen Elizabeth curses him as well and says, no way, it's never going to happen, and Richard tries to talk to her, and she says, okay, well, think about it. Richard leaves. She doesn't reveal that Elizabeth is actually already betrothed to Richmond, the guy who's mounting the army in France, so that's a done deal. And Richard thinks everything's, peaches and cream. He's informed that Buckingham's army has been dispersed, and Buckingham has been captured, but Richmond has landed in England and is mounting, he has a huge army with them, and they're marching forward. So in the last act, the night before the big battle, Richard and Richmond both have the same weird dream. They dream that 11 ghosts of people that Richard have killed appear to them. It's this big parade of people, and they come to Richmond and tell him, you're blessed, you're going to win tomorrow, you will be king, don't worry about it. And they go to Richard and say, we curse you to a bloody death, you're going to fail. There's no way you could ever win this. And Richard wakes up, and for the first time is feeling terror. They go to battle, his horse is dead, his horse is killed in battle, he has to fight on foot. Richard and Richmond meet. Richmond kills Richard, announces that he's going to marry Elizabeth, uniting the houses of Lancaster and York, and ending the War of the Roses. So, in order to wind up the last couple of minutes and see how much we've retained, we're going to play My Kingdom for a Horse. It's the Richard III game show, everybody. So if I could have everyone from Matt over me on one team, you're all on one team together. Are your squawkers. Essentially it's going to be like Jeopardy, whoever buzzes in first gets to answer the question, and if you get it correctly, then you can choose the next category. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to choose the first one. I'm going to choose the first one. I'm going to pick It's All Relative. I can get it off the board. Name Queen Elizabeth's children. Hidden.
Prince Edward of Wales and the young Elizabeth.
Very well done. And what category would you like to pick? Here's It's All Relative and Literature and Ancient History and Fears and Pet Peeves. Team? Fears and Pet Peeves. How does Richard justify his villainy? Hit me.
That he was a hunchback.
That's one of them.
And he has a club foot.
Deformed. He's deformed. Next. One more. Category.
Ancient history.
To which house did Margaret and the late Henry VI belong?
9.
All right, that's what we have time for. Well done.